Ah, hello. Uh, First question I need to ask is that if the video and the sound and everything is working all right. Um, I think I've got everything cooking. We'll see pretty soon. Um, Let me see if I can find this. I'm going to start reading something. Hey neighbor, how you doing? Turning into a gray day. Oh, good. Everything is good. That's great to hear. Hi Thomas, how you doing? Let me read something, and I'm gonna while everyone's getting sort of uh, squared away. Um, this is about a natural escapement, and that's let me start off with what it is. So first, let me put it here so I don't be looking at you. First theorized by Breguet, it experienced a notable resurgence of interest in the course of the 2010s. The escapement is said to be natural when the impulse is transmitted as directly as possible from the escapement wheel to the balance wheel. Breguet had imagined a system with two escape wheels operating alternately but linked to each other by an additional pair of wheels, though these were quite energy hungry. In other words, they would cut down on the reserve time. A frequency of 3 hertz was chosen because a watch worn on the wrist is subjected to countless shocks of varying intensity. Each one has repercussions on the movement's regulating organs, that is, the escapement wheels, but more importantly, on the balance wheel with its spiral springs. With each impact, there is an acceleration or slowdown, and the components find themselves twisted in their plane. They must therefore resume their intended course as quickly as possible, which is a sine qua non for position under everyday wear conditions. In addition, the escapement is a system that spends most of its time at a standstill, whilst the balance wheel is in perpetual rotation. It only activates the anchor at the end of each oscillation. When it has the highest velocity, that is the greatest force, and thus the best capacity to drive the machines. The anchor and excuse me, and anchor wheels are in constant stop and go, accelerated and decelerated, which consumes energy and impairs isochronism. Anyway, the, the point that they're making is that with by slowing it down from 4 hertz or even 5 down to 3 hertz or down to 2.5 hertz, what happens is that the balance wheel recovers its isochronism much quicker. And I think that was, I hadn't heard that before, but that was in and talking about sources of information, that was in Bernhard Lederer's write up about his movement that he made with the natural escapement. So I thought that was sort of an interesting thing. And that's what I wanted to talk about today is that where do we get our information from and how good is it? Is what Bernard Lederer is saying, would that be agreeable to, let's say, Philippe Dufour or Jean-Marc Viderec or F.P. Journe? What would they say to something like that? Now, Bernhard Lederer had worked with George Daniels, and this was a thing that George Daniels did some work on. I don't know if he ever completed it or not, but it's sort of an interesting thing that tells us something about where to look for quality in movements. So that's what the whole thing is about. Okay, guys. Alexander, my neighbors here, Thomas, David, Abdul, John, Philip, Velvia Man, Brian. Good to see you guys. As balance wheel and escape wheel used interchangeably here, what's the difference? Oh, the escape wheel is different than the balance wheel. The escape wheel is that wheel with those funny looking teeth on it. The balance wheel has no teeth. It might have some balance weights on it. Hi, Mark. I've heard that this guy has a YouTube channel. Is pretty reliable. Bernhardt Lederer does. I didn't know that. That would be, yeah. Hi, Ronan. How you doing? Hola. ¿Cómo está? Junior. Hi, Junior. Okay. What I that was just one example. Hi, CJ from Santa Cruz. I had an office mate who, when I was in graduate school, and she spent most of her career teaching at the University of California at Santa Cruz. So, big Santa Cruz fan. Yeah, I think there's that's one thing I think we all ought to know. I got it drilled into me by a guy who was a watchmaker and a former judge for the GPHG. And one day he gave me a quiz. He says, how does it work?" And I got it right. And so that was he decided I wasn't a total idiot after all. Let me a lot of my research, I mean, a lot of my background was in research and research methods and so forth. And one thing about research is that a lot of times you'd want to go to multiple sources. You don't want to listen to people who are dogmatic. That's another thing. Anyone who is just dogmatic about anything, I never listen to. I think, and so I think so that's what I think is important for. I think that the really, how do you know the best advice? Some people who are good people who say things are sometimes wrong. So they're not dishonest, but they're have a different, I'll say, not necessarily uninformed, but informed from a different place, okay, or a different way. And I think when we start looking at things, we should take them all, no matter what or how reliable we think the source is, with a grain of salt. I'll see if there's something to back that up. There's something in scientific research called reliability, and reliability has to do with finding the same thing in different places. I know there's some situations in watch collection where I've heard the wrong information in different places, and I may be one who have spread some of it, but that's the way it is. Okay, Abdul, let's see what Abdul's got here. Regarding the information aspect, sometimes I wonder how solid some watchmakers' ideas and theories are. For example, some of the go-to watchmaking schools and some just do repairs. What's the standard? That's a very good question, and I don't know what the answer is to that. That's an excellent, and that's the kind of question we should ask. Is that the guy's sort of, is there a Harvard or a Cambridge or a Heidelberg of watchmaking schools versus Podunk State? uh, hate when students use Wikipedia as their source. Yeah, sometimes Wikipedia can be a starting place, and you can go from there. But a lot of times, it's not so much. Um, there's some very funny sources of information. One of the most interesting is AI. I forgot the name of it. I have it. It's called I forgot the name of it. It's an AI thing, and you can ask the AI stuff, and it'll come back with information for you. And some of the things that it comes back to are very robotic, like blah 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 blah. This is what it is, and it found some sources. Others I found are very good, and so. But the only way I know the source of information is very good is because I have information before I looked at something the AI had. So there are things that you really got to ask about. Speaking of watchmaking school, greats like Dufour are very critical of these schools too. Well, his daughter was at one. This is funny. Dufour's daughter, Danielle, she comes back with her shiny degree. And this is her talking, said, well, she's in there with her dad and they're working on something. And he said, oh, that's not the way to do it. She said, well, this is what they told us to do it. Nah, forget the watchmaking school. I probably have more faith in watchmaking schools because not everybody is as talented in depth as Philippe Dufour, nor is everybody in the watchmaking school. So, I mean, you don't always get that kind of depth. So anyway, I wouldn't dismiss them altogether, but I'm going to say that is one source of information, and then you have a little asterisk by it. Well, I'll look a little further, but that would be a source that would sort of shore up some kind of concepts. Hey, Mark, my main and best advice about watches. Oh, gee, I wouldn't trust that guy, Mark. He's a bum. he, he cheats. Hey, Goldfinger. It's kind of like when your plumber or electrician tells you about what the problem is, and you kind of just have to take their word for it. How many of the GPHG churs have a keen understanding? Oh, they probably do. I would say your GPHG judge, I think, has a lot better knowledge than your average GPHG Academy member. The way the GPHG works is that when they have a judgment on something, everybody like there's 200 or 300 people who are part of what's called the academy. They all put in their 2 cents, and so then you get the nominations that way. Now, after the nominations, there's a group of really top-notch people, and the ones I've known of are certainly that, who are then the judges. Now, I know there's a lot of cynicism about the judges, and this is, you see certain brands like Tudor, for example, they keep winning again and again and again. And they're sort of Rolex's, I don't know what, sort of their jumper. Let me tell you what a jumper is. There are these radioactive materials in part of creating atomic energy. Okay. And they have these big, like, vats or rooms that have to be cleaned out. And so they have these guys who go in there, they have to clean them out. They're called jumpers. They put them in suits and everything, so a person's got a chance. But I mean, what an awful job is a jumper on that. And you have certain members, I guess, who are that way, who are jumpers, I guess. They have to do the dirty work. And some of that dirty work may be making sure that Tudor wins something every year. I don't know. Watch forums. Yeah, now, Alexander, I've seen good and bad watch forums. Let me give you an example. There was I have a watch by Jaeger-LeCoultre, okay? A Jaeger-LeCoultre watch, and I got it because I collect 736 movements by Jean-Pierre Droz. He was a guy, not Droz, but Jacques. All right. So you have Jaeger-LeCoultre, and then you have Jean-Pierre Jacques. All right. Two different Jacques. And I was at this one forum, and they were trying to make up their mind whether the movement in the Jaeger-LeCoultre was an in-house or not. Well, one of them said, well, they found out that the movement was by Jacques. Now, and so it must be, now the guys, one thing I'll hand it to them, they at least they knew what the movement was, knowing about a Jacques 736 movement in a Jaeger-LeCoultre watch means they know something. And so, but the guy then followed up by saying, so now we know it's an in-house movement. It was anything but. So I think on Alexander, on some of those things, you really got to be careful, because here are people who like all of us are, we like to get good information and we try to share it with one another. But sometimes you have to go elsewhere too. Let me tell you, one of my places that I end up getting information that I can't get anywhere else, and that's at auctions. If not little auctions, but big auctions at Christie's and Sotheby's and Phillips. If you look at something being auctioned off and you go there, you can often find things like the name of the actual movement that you won't find anywhere else. Okay. Hi, Jonathan Quayle Higgins III. In Archie Luxury One, I trust. Well, I don't blame you. Archie. Okay. And would collectors know things about their watches independently? That is, the brands, they didn't tell them. I don't know. I mean, I imagine that some watch groups are better than others because people make an effort, to be one way or the other. Some of them are, just a bunch of sort of brand cheerleaders, and they get out there and rah whatever brand they're backing. Others, though, are pretty good. But sometimes the brand ones, like I belong to a couple of brand ones, like Roger Dubuis. That's one of the ones I belong to. And sometimes I'll go there. I'll say, hey, guys, I couldn't find this. And there'll be somebody in that brand who says, oh, yeah, I know about that. And they have some information. Or like the Journe guy. He knows FP Journe inside and out. So there's some that are more trustworthy than others. Others are simply sales sites. And, The Watch Reporter. Patel Philippe, The Watch Reporter. If that's who I think it is, they seem to be pretty good. The guy who is, what's his name? Watches TV. His stuff is very good. And I always admire him because he pronounces the French words so well. He's probably because he's Swiss. Now, everybody be nice to each other, okay? Let's see. Hey, Canadian Watch Monkey, how you doing? I trust my watchmaker. He doesn't sell watches unless the customers walked away from him because they couldn't pay his bill. Oh, that's an interesting thing. Yeah, that is a very. I had this guy that I knew who was a watchmaker. I trusted him a lot, and the one I had, I think he either died or quit. He was 84 when he was a watchmaker. He didn't seem to know a lot about certain of sort of, I'll say, the politics of watchmaking. He just knew them, and he knew watches almost in a visceral way. And usually one of the things, if he ever ran into something he couldn't fix, he said, I can't do anything with it because I can't get those parts. And that was, that a lot of them are that way. A tourbillon can be quite offensive and not as sublime as a nice rattrapante. Jesus. How was your experience with El Lara? Oh, God. Patel, let me tell you about my experience with El Lara. First of all, when I got my El Lara, I got it. I did something stupid. I was pretty new then with my El Lara, and I put out a bid that I didn't think anybody would accept. And won a bid that was in. I don't know if they still have them, but they had them on a eBay bid. Okay, so I got this watch. It was gorgeous. It was just a beautiful, gorgeous watch. Wound it up at work fine. And so I wanted to know what the movement was. And so I looked everywhere. So finally I called El Lara and I asked him about it. And the guy there said, we don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Oh, we don't know. We think it was a Frederick Breguet, but we're not sure. I said, oh, okay, a Frederick Breguet. That's great. Would you mind sending me a picture of it? I'd like to see it because I like to learn about, what's in my watch. They sent me this blurry picture that could have been anything. It could have been a baked Alaska dessert for all I could tell from this glob that they sent me. So this friend of mine who is the watchmaker, former judge, I took it to him. I said, could you tell me what it was? I was afraid to take the back off, to tell you the truth. I wasn't about to do that. So he whips the back off. Oh, he said, I got bad news for you. It's an ETA. So here it was an ETA 7001. Now I learned that the 7001 had been a Pazoo 7001 before. The thing that got me, though, was that if the guys there, when I first called, I would have been very happy to, if they said, well, it's a Pazoo 7001, I would have accepted that and found out about it, and that would be fine. The problem with it was on a 40 millimeter watch, I think that's what it was, a little bitty, the 7001 is awfully small movement. So that was my experience, El Lara, but a beautiful watch. A friend of mine wanted to, I had the Cirrus, Christian Vanderclaw, Cirrus 74. And he had one, and I wanted one of those. And so I said, I'll trade you. Or he told me that, actually. He said, I'll trade you for that. So I said, okay. So we traded a gold, it was solid gold, El Lara for my Christian Vanderclaw. So okay, finally I got a watch with a movement I can trust. Well, the movement, after going through a lot of stuff, I thought it was a Soprod, and then it had a Christian Vanderclaw on top of it. And then on that, it had an ETA. It was an excellent ETA, though, and it worked beautifully. But still, I was, anyway, that's not it. Yeah, Brian, at least one person Hey, Jonathan, let's see what you got. Do you know the Swiss and John show? No, I don't. I'll see if I can find him. Michael, hi, Michael. Is the watch reporter the one that busted the Omega auction chocolate dial scandal? Boy, I didn't know. I didn't know about that. See, Abdul, let's see. You can certainly trust observatories and independent certification organizations that, that's a great idea, Abdul. I like that. Hi, Don. How you doing? Is this the Don F from Hawaii? Okay, let's talk more about who is, if let's say you're thinking of buying a watch, okay? And hey, Don, and thank you for using Don F. You have I don't want to mispronounce another last name. um, if you are thinking about getting a watch, and for whatever reason you can't, you don't know what the movement is, what would be the first thing that you'd do? Where would you go look? What would be the first step that you'd take? Anybody? You've come up with some good ideas, like Brian's idea. You go to a watch site that specializes in that watch. Hi, 521. You'd be surprised, 521, how many people do that. And a lot of times, I don't know the answer either, but I'll tell. You know what I'll do, and I probably shouldn't. I'm as interested as they are, and I say, oh, here I got this Acme 521. What should I do? It's like, oh, and I'll spend a day looking at the thing. I shouldn't do that. I got stuff to do. Hi, Lease Time. How you doing? Okay, so what are some other ways? What are some other things you do? I guess it's goofy. Strange human behavior exists whereby the owner of an object encourages others to buy it to confirm his decisions are correct. Oh boy, is that ever true, Forbin? That is very true. That's a great point. I see what you're saying. In other words, if I was interested in a watch and I went to a watch site of those collectors, then they would come out and perhaps say something that justified their quote good decision. That's another issue. All of these things, on the one hand, it's a great idea. On the other hand, there's that. There's people things. Reddit. I would never think of Reddit for that, but that's good to know. Hi, Miguel. How you doing? Anthony Fair. I don't know Anthony. Hi, Truman. I use Watchbase. Same here. Watchbase is sort of funny. If some of the older ones they quit listing, and some of the newer ones they don't have yet, and so there's a sweet spot right in the middle. And if you can find it there, there's another place called Caliber Corner that's really excellent for the same thing. It's okay, Mark. Yeah, I think one of the hard things, one of the worst things I think of it, I become suspicious in a bad way. If somebody says it's a Swiss movement, could be anything. Recently, in fact, I think it was just last week, I did a review of Baltic watches. And the thing I like so much about Baltic, they had prices all over the place, but boy, I tell you, you knew what kind of movement you're getting on that. That I really appreciate. Shop worn, yeah, they shop worn. Every now and then you can find it. It's not called shop worn anymore. They changed the name to Solist. I don't know why, but they did. So it's SOL. I thought it was Soloist, some weird name they have. I like shop worn. I don't know why they changed it. They probably sold it and the new owner wanted to give it a new name. I used to find, and I have fabulous deals that I got from Shopware. I think that's where I got my Parmigiani hemispheres for a song. That was a long time ago, though. Soloist, that's right, Brian. Yeah, the seller is often hard to judge. I bought watches from people I don't know from Adams Ox and have not been burned yet, which is not necessarily a good thing because that means my time is coming. The former watch dealer from UK, what's his name again? You mean the guy who got mugged? That guy? Least time? Hey, Coop, Watches TV is a great place for insights. Yeah. I like him too. Yeah, the guy that got mugged. Uh yeah, I think he might be a good guy for certain brands. He's very much into sales more so than watchmaking. So it's sort of like I seem like a pretty good guy though. There's been some brawls about some of the stuff that he had. He was accused of sort of trying to make more out of the mugging than you know, I think in some places here in the US, if somebody say they got mugged, oh, that's interesting. What happened Tuesday, or something like that. But no, that's not fair. I guess there are certain places in every place in the world where you got to watch it on that. He knows some stuff least time. I'll say that. It seems that the stuff that he knows the best is the stuff that sells the most. Yeah, I saw that one, Forbin. It was a little too expensive for me. Federico Del Rey has a Parmigiani Tonda. Oh, does he? A Metrograph, black dial. Yeah, Federico has been. Uh, he's a friendly guy. I like Federico. Anyway, I, I think I think the most important thing that we can do as individuals or even as a group is look at different sources. Really, I mean, um, I I'm very open about my prejudices, and I have a lot of them. Okay, a lot of them revolve around really not too happy with certain trends that have gone on, but you know, I've shut off my mouth enough about that. So it's not too helpful. But on the other hand, um, I think the biggest thing we can take away from this is that really try a lot of different places to get sort of one thing leads to another, sort of like a good mystery. You find one thing and then you find another and you find another. I've often had to follow a path from a long trail, and I finally ended up where I didn't expect to end up. It's sort of like you get, you know, one type. You'll follow something. Girard-Perregaux, 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 Frederick Piguet. You know, it's sort of like, well, where did that come from? Okay, guys, it's about quitting time for me. Okay, we'll take Abdul's idea. Why don't we community start a joint doc website with a section for each brand where we can accumulate joint knowledge? Sure, Abdul, look, we can do that. I think that's not a bad idea. If you got something on a watch and you want to put it up, that's not a bad idea. Practice is probably a pretty good one. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you all for coming and wish you to get the best watch that you can and don't get screwed ever. Take care.